Mic check 1 2. It's the Y2K collector. Top of the morning to you. I wanted to talk real quick about the Xbox and if it's worth collecting even now in 2024. And this is a question that I've gotten on my channel multiple times. And this is the first time that I think I'm gonna really give my thorough thoughts and opinions on it. And I'm gonna really kind of look at it from an original Xbox standpoint, Xbox 360, and then of course the Xbox One. But I'm gonna do them in kind of a weird order because to me, the Xbox, especially the original Xbox, is very much a nostalgia play. I feel like in a way, Xbox became the new Sega Genesis. And what do I mean when I say that? What I mean is that Nintendo is always going to be the most relatable video game brand. Majority of people who play video games are going to have some type of Nintendo product in their home at some point, whether it's a handheld, a console, whatever the case may be. Nintendo is pretty much a staple, I feel like, in most people's homes. And even if you're not a fan of Nintendo, you will know about Nintendo just because their brand presence within the realm of video games is so strong. I think Sony has always been right behind Nintendo ever since the launch of the original PlayStation. Sony has been able to establish a place of dominance, I feel like, in the realm of video games. And they've done things from a technology standpoint, from a pricing standpoint, and from a creative standpoint, to, I think, separate themselves from Nintendo and maintain their foothold. But behind Nintendo and Sony, I feel like that's where everyone else falls in, right? And there's just a long list of video game brands and companies that maybe had the spotlight for a period of time, but they've never been able to maintain their perennial all-star status and stay at the forefront of the minds of consumers. Whether you want to look at Sega and how they crashed and burned after the Dreamcast, if you want to look at SNK and how they outpriced themselves with their consoles, the Neo Geo, so on and so forth. If you want to look at companies like, the 3DO or the Jaguar or the TurboGrafx or, just any number of companies that, maybe kind of had the spotlight, looked like they were gaining momentum, but just were not able to establish themselves as, perennial players in the game. I think, like, I feel like an Xbox, I put Xbox in that category, in that Sega category for this generation. Now, what I will say is that the one thing that saved Xbox was their ability to adapt to, the online um, world of gaming, right? I think that's genuinely what saved Xbox because of Game Pass. I feel like that's the one thing that really pulls them out of the Sega, Neo Geo category because they were able to adapt a lot faster. And if you think about it, it's Microsoft, right? So they should be able to adapt considering the parent company. But I feel like if there were if they were not able to create like an online ecosystem, I feel like they definitely would have fallen into the bucket of the Genesis, Neo Geo, that lineup of consoles. And conversely, I feel like if Sega were to have somehow been able to maintain its relevance, right? If they were able to better adapt, I feel like Sega would have been right up there with Nintendo and Sony because they had the history. In my opinion, they had done the best job of going toe to toe with Nintendo during the fourth generation console wars, Sega versus Super Nintendo. I think they could have definitely had a stronger foothold. They just weren't able to adapt. And that just falls back to leadership, right? They had poor leadership, poor decision making from executives, and just poor decision making is going to tank any company. Even Nike just saw its worst profits, over this past year or over this past quarter, because they had poor leadership and they had to fire their CEO, and now they got someone new in, and hopefully they can turn it around in 2025. But before I digress anymore, I just want to establish that by saying that's kind of mentally where I put Xbox. And I put Xbox there because I'm not much of an online gamer. I never did the Halo thing. I was never really into the Gears of War thing. That just wasn't my thing. When the original Xbox came out, I was very much a GameCube person. I really didn't like the PlayStation 2 because I just didn't like how all the games looked very faded or really dark. And the GameCube for me was what I gravitated towards. So I definitely had Smash Bros. I played Star Fox Adventures. I was a GameCube kid during 2002 or 2001, during that generation. So I feel like original Xbox is very much a nostalgia play. Now, the reason why I say that too is because to me, in my opinion, and I haven't done a ton of research on like original Xbox games, so I could be dead wrong with this, but I don't feel like there were enough Xbox exclusive like standout titles to make me say I really want to have this system. Even when I look back, right, on original Xbox, and I've gone through their catalog, I haven't really seen 20 to 25 original Xbox exclusive games, like games that I could only play on Xbox, that make me say I want to proactively go out and get this console and build this library. I just never have. Now, I have a number of games that I've been able to randomly find at thrift stores and pawn shops, and I've kept them in my collection, but I don't have an Xbox, so I haven't had a chance to play them. Who knows if they even work, but I've kept them because I found them, and I found them for cheap. First is Castlevania, Curse of Darkness, which I was able to find. Star Wars, Knights of the Old Republic 2. One thing I'll say about Xbox too is that their cases are always in great condition. Like, for the most part, they always like stand the test of time really well. Star Wars Battlefront Platinum Hits version, I do have that. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 4 is another one that I have. Grand Theft Auto Vice City is another one that's in my collection, and then I've got Blood Rain as well. So those are my original Xbox games. Now, I don't go out looking for original Xbox games, but if I do happen to find one, I'll pick it up if it's cheap enough. I feel like original Xbox games are worth picking up if you had an original Xbox growing up, and maybe there's, a nostalgia play there, and you want to relive the moments of your childhood or your early teens. I say go for it. Like I said, I've never owned an Xbox, but from what I understand, it was the best. It had the best performance of the big three of that generation. The big three being Xbox, PlayStation 2, and GameCube. I always look at Dreamcast as like the Boba Fett of that generation, like a really sick console that people just like slept on. But anyway, yeah. So I mean, in my opinion, if you're looking for nostalgia, go for the Xbox. I wouldn't go for the original Xbox for performance, because obviously we're in a day and age where there's consoles that perform way better, but that's how I view that. When it comes to the Xbox One, to me, this is the console that makes the least sense to collect for, in my opinion. Now, much like the original Xbox, there's a lot of cross-pollination between platforms, right? And when I say cross-pollination, I mean a lot of the games that came out on the original Xbox came out on PlayStation 2 and GameCube. A lot of the good ones, right? So you really had your option of playing these games on any one of the three platforms. And I feel like the same rings true with the Xbox One. Now, for me, I have a few games in my Xbox One collection, but the only ones that I feel like are worth even kind of talking about are Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3. I have this with the comic book. Demon Turf, which is actually surprisingly a beautiful game. Attack on Titan, and Attack on Titan 2 Final Battle. So, these are a few games here that I would say, these are some cool games to have on the Xbox One, but in my opinion, if I could have them on the PlayStation 4, I'd much rather them on the PlayStation 4. That's just me. I feel like, Xbox One is one of those platforms, one of those consoles that, again, you really get for the online access, the Game Pass access. I feel like the bulk of the games that I would play on Xbox One, I would just play on PlayStation 2, 4. So for me, there's really no reason to collect for that console. There are a ton of games out there for the Xbox One. I think it's a very collectible console. You could easily build a large collection there. But I think if and when they eventually shut down that online ecosystem, I feel like a lot of these games are going to be, I don't want to say they're going to be worthless, but when the bulk of them are already on PlayStation, um, I think people are just going to naturally gravitate more towards PlayStation 4. So if I had to choose in 2024 to start a Xbox One collection or a PlayStation 4 collection, I'm just going to go PS4. Because again, there's not enough Xbox exclusive games on Xbox to make me say, man, I want to go get those games. And if I'm absolutely wrong, you guys let me know down in the comments. If there are like Xbox One and original Xbox games I'm just absolutely clueless about that I have to try, let me know down in the comments and maybe I'll look up some gameplay footage, but I have yet to see any compelling games to make me say I need to get either of these consoles, especially when the games that I would play, I can get and play them on other systems um, uh, easily. Now, the one game changer when it comes to Xbox is obviously their golden child. In my opinion, this is their golden child, and that is the Xbox 360. Now, the Xbox 360 was came at a very, very interesting time in gaming history, right? So we're talking 7th gen, we're talking after the PlayStation 2 generation, and there was still a lot of innovation. People, I feel like developers were still willing to take risks, and there were still a lot of original ideas coming out. And thankfully, Xbox, the 360 at the time, there were a lot of really great games that were exclusive to the Xbox 360. A ton of exclusives. Now, don't get me wrong, a lot of those exclusives have eventually been ported to like the PlayStation 4, the Switch, some of them, right? Not all of them, but some of them. But at the time, I feel like, and even today, there still are some amazing games that are locked to the 360. And we're going to talk about some of them here. But I'm going to showcase just some games that to me make owning a 360 worth it, even in 2024. Now, Cameo is definitely a game that feels like it belonged on the original Xbox, I'm not going to lie. But it's still a 360 exclusive that I think is really cool. Interesting, like, character adventure game, right? So I'm not going to say too much about this one, but I think this one is definitely a cool one. You have the 99 Nights series, so 99 Nights and 99 Nights 2. Two games that play very differently. This one plays more like a Dynasty Warriors. This one is it is kind of like a Dynasty Warriors, but not as action packed and hard hitting. I feel like it's not, the presentation is a little bit more dull too on the first 99 Nights, but still a great hack and slash series if you're into that. I think the 360 had some really cool exclusive Naruto games. Naruto Broken Bond being one of them. This is like, I'm not a huge fan of the cartoon, but some of these like Naruto adventure games are pretty darn cool and are worth checking out. Also, you have games like Akai Katana, a really interesting shoot 'em up, which the 360 was home to a ton of shoot 'em ups, which is another reason why I think the 360 has a special place in my heart, because there were so many great shoot 'em ups on this console. When you think about Death Smiles and Raiden, and especially so many of the other ones that were released overseas. But Akai Katana has seen a port now. It's on the PlayStation 4 and the Switch. But still, at the time, an exclusive. You've got Raiden Fighters, another really awesome shoot 'em up. Raiden Fighters Aces, rather. Another Xbox 360 exclusive, really great shoot 'em up game. Naruto Rise of a Ninja, another Naruto adventure game worth checking out. I think we're so used to the Shippuden games that we don't realize that there are a ton of really great Naruto adventure games. You have stealth games like Velvet Assassin, a game that you're not really going to find on other platforms, a really sick Very well done, great graphics on this game. Raiden 4, which I mean, we've gotten the Makito remix on the Switch and the PlayStation 4, so this one has also been ported or remade on other consoles, but still a great Xbox 360 game. And then, of course, the probably one of the most exclusive titles that you'll only find on the 360. You can only really play this at this point on a physical Xbox 360. Fist of the North Star: Ken's Rage 2, which in a lot of ways plays almost exactly like the original Ken's Rage, but this is a game that you can't download anymore. It's not on the 360 store, at least I don't think. And unless you had it downloaded to your console, the only way you could play it is with a physical version, which is probably why it's so expensive. But there's a lot more. I show all these to pretty much show that there's a lot more compelling titles that appeal to me, between the shoot 'em ups, the beat 'em ups, the adventure games, games that are no longer available online. That's what makes the 360, in my opinion, the golden child for the Xbox platform. And I feel like if there was an Xbox console to collect for, the 360 is probably going to be the one that makes the most sense, even in 2024. So again, I mean, if you're wanting to go after Xbox, original Xbox games, do it for the nostalgia. To me, Xbox One isn't worth it at all, in my opinion, or Xbox Series games. For me, they're just not worth it. I have, as you can see, I really only have 4, and I stopped immediately because I realized, you know what, I'm going to go for these games on the PlayStation 4. And then, obviously, the 360. You know, the 360 is a great console. Don't get me wrong, there's still a ton of games on the 360 that you can play on the PlayStation 3. And those games, I buy on the PlayStation 3. If I have to choose between Xbox 360 and a PlayStation 3 game, I'm more than likely going to get it on the PS3 than 360. Just because with some games, I like the way the PS3 looks a little bit better. Yeah, that's just my opinion on that. And I have a game, one of the games that is an example of that is Blades of Time. I've had Blades of Time on the 360, and I've also had it on the PS3. I sold my 360 copy because I just like the way the PS3 version looked better. But those are my thoughts on collecting for the Xbox. Let me know what you think. Do you think the Xbox, original Xbox, Xbox One, or the Xbox 360 is worth collecting in 2024? I'm interested to know your thoughts. It's the Y2K Collector. I'll catch you in the next video.